The Endless Golf Podcast, brought to you by Toyota.
And welcome to another edition of the Endless Golf Podcast presented by Toyota. Joining me today is my special guest on this special Super Bowl edition of the Endless Golf Podcast, Barry the Stallion Streib. And Stallion, we had a chance to get together a couple weeks ago and talk about the Ravens, and we were excited. And I got to say, it was a very disappointing AFC Championship game for sure, for all Ravens fans, us included. We were lucky enough to be there that day and see it in person, although it wasn't fun to watch. But I will say, the energy before that game, we got a chance to spend some time together. The atmosphere was really electric at M&T Bank Stadium that day.
Well, they had all the Oriole players there, all the Ravens players there, Suggs, Ray Lewis. It was really electric. A lot of people on the sidelines, a lot more than usual, but a lot of cameras around. I had a chance to look right below. I was in the front row, and the TVs were right there. I could look at TVs and the game at the same time. I was looking for instant replays, but it was electric, and it's just sad the way it ended.
Well, it certainly was. I thought it was interesting, Barry. The Kansas City Chiefs won the coin toss, and they elected to defer. And they put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands to start that game. They took it out of Patrick Mahomes' hand, and you would think that maybe Kansas City would want the ball to start the game, but no, they gave it to Jackson, probably put more pressure on our offense, and it actually paid off because we went 3 and out. And I thought that really sent a message when we went 3 and out, and they took the ball and went down and took a lot of time off the clock in that first quarter on that first drive and scored of their first touchdown.
Well, I wasn't so sure about the defensive game planning either. I don't know how Kelsey, you just can't take him out of the game. I know Hamilton's an all-pro, but you need to double cover him. You got to take him out of the game. So I didn't necessarily agree with that philosophy either. Even though we held them scoreless in the second half, they still ate time off the clock. Crucial situations, third down, drives me nuts. We can't get a third down, but I think the defensive game plan was good, but once they take time off that clock and running the ball, that's what we needed to do.
Yeah, actually, it was funny. I thought it was a good point. They played our game, and they controlled the ball on the ground. They converted on third downs. Third down conversions for them were very positive. For us, it was awful. And I know everybody's talking about the game plan with Todd Monken not running the ball enough, and I got to say I agree with that. But I don't think that was the biggest cause. I just think our best player in Lamar Jackson didn't play well. And we talked about this last week when we did our show about the AFC Championship. We said the only way that we could see the Ravens losing if they turned the ball over, if they beat themselves. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened.
Well, on that first sack that they had and he fumbled, I know you said that they had about 4 seconds to throw the ball, but the game plan was everybody was running deep, so he's going to need 4 seconds. But I think he should have put him in a better situation where he should have pounded the ball, a couple maybe reverses or stuff like that. I didn't want him to throw the ball deep and then have a turnover like that. But the Flowers turnover at the goal line was just crazy, and then stupid penalties, pushing his head down, and drives me nuts. But they didn't turn the ball over, and that's what you need to do, control that clock, and it was just unfortunate. I mean, I had a really good year, and the Ravens had a really good year, but it was all that extra mashed potatoes and gravy I could have had if the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl would have happened. Oh, no, I was starting to slobber on myself.
Well, you know what? You got to give the Ravens credit. Even after that first drive by Kansas City, they got settled in, and then Lamar Jackson becomes Lamar Jackson, pulls out the Houdini play, escapes the pass rush, and throws to Zay Flowers down the sideline in the end zone. And it was a great pass and a great catch. And that ties the game up 7-7. And at that time, the stadium's electric. You think, hey, this is good. We came right back in it. We score 7. The game's tied. We're looking good. Unfortunately, for us, the Chiefs get the ball back and then again, took some more time off the clock. And that was very important. They were able to hold the ball, score again to go up 14-7.
Yeah, and then they got that field goal, a 52-yard field goal at the end. So the time was getting to be and not in our favor, where he was forced into throwing the ball. And in those conditions, and they have the best two cornerbacks out there, supposedly. And I didn't see any separation for anybody. I'm not so sure if they wanted to change all the game plan on Andrews being in there when Likely was, playing good. And, even some people were saying that you don't change that.
I don't think they
I,
changed the game plan for that. They didn't really use Likely or Andrews very much at all. I thought that was unfortunate. They were so successful against Houston in that second half, taking care of the blitz by throwing those short passes. And to your point, there wasn't a lot of that at all during the whole game. They didn't adjust. They seemed to be trying to make big plays down the field. And that really, I think, hurt them. And that caused them to push them into Lamar holding the football. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to escape sometimes. There were some times where I thought he could have run where he decided not to. But I think again, back to the game plan, not running the football, and I think not having those outlets for the blitzes was really important in that game.
Well, they didn't use Hill at all, hardly at all. Edwards hardly at all. And I think that they could have, when they ran for 15 yards, it was a start. Yeah, you always say you stick to the program and stuff like that, but I thought he should have taken off a couple of times because he's the most dangerous runner out there. Why even keep trying to push the ball downfield? And the game plan for them was to flush the playbook is for flush Lamar out of the pocket. And that's what they did. And he could have taken off a couple of times like he did against Houston. And he tried to make the big play. So Lamar didn't play good at all, but I think sometimes he was put in that situation where he's trying to make too many plays.
Well, I agree with that, but I think it does come down on the quarterback. Unfortunately, I know Todd Monken's taken a lot of heat, but for me, I've been one of the biggest Lamar Jackson supporters out of a lot of people. I love the guy. I think he's a great player, and I think he will win a Super Bowl in Baltimore. Obviously, he's going to get a lot of criticism, which he deserves. I mean, he hasn't played well in the playoffs. He signed the big contract. This was the biggest stage. This was his chance to make a statement. And unfortunately, he didn't have his best game. And you want your big time players to have their best games when the lights are on. He's had a lot of great games as a Raven. Unfortunately, not many of them have happened in the playoffs. And until he wins in the playoffs and gets to the Super Bowl, this narrative is going to be around, Barry. Unfortunately, that's just a fact of the matter. A lot of Ravens fans, not just for Lamar Jackson, but also for John Harbaugh.
Well, yeah, they got rid of the offensive coordinator last year because he didn't run the ball and stuff like that. And I remember Harbaugh not taking control of the game when Polamalu sacked Flacco. Why is he going back for a pass with a 4-point lead with like 2 minutes to go in the game? So sometimes, and Condiff, you got a timeout. It's 25-mile-an-hour winds, and he's late getting on the field. And what do? You don't even call the timeout so he can regroup himself. So I think Harbaugh has to take a little bit of the credit too. He's got to take more of control, start pounding the ball, and make sure he asserts that he doesn't leave it up to the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators all the time.
Well, you look around the NFL, and I've said this, the coaching decisions that are out there, look into the Detroit Lions. If you're the Detroit Lions today, you're not feeling very good about your coach because I think he made some bad decisions. But there's tough decisions to be made. Andy Reid did not kick that field goal. And if he would, if he had, that could have come back to haunt him. The Ravens stopped him on 4th down and get the ball back. That was a big momentum swing. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do anything with the football at that time. But I really thought he should have kicked the field goal there in that situation. Took 3 points off the board that he could have had, and that could have come down at the end to be a big factor in that game.
Yeah, and he'd go up by 6, and I had him winning by 1 or 4 at that point when he didn't do that. And I thought maybe they had a chance. Flowers, I hate, I saw it in the other playoffs where Carolina was playing Tampa Bay and he dives over at the half-inch yard line. He fumbles through the end zone. I hate seeing that, especially when it happens to us. That was a game changer right there. I mean, that put the momentum. I was sitting in that stand. I hardly had a chance to even cheer a couple times. I mean, one time when Edwards ran for 15 yards and they scored a touchdown, I actually had a chance to give my wife a high five. That's the only high five I could give all game. It was so disheartening. It's ridiculous.
It was, and
Drive me
I
nuts.
think you got to take your hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about the time of possession in the first half was unbelievably on the side of the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Ravens didn't have the ball that much. And then in the second half, we come out and our defense, we need to get a stop, and they did. They go 3 and out. We get the ball back, and then we're in a situation. We our first play is a running play, and they stuff it on Gus Edwards. And then we don't make any movement. So our first couple possessions of that third quarter were a little bit shaky, and that's when we really needed to step up and make a statement. I mean, if you'd have told anybody that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to score 17 points, the question would have been, how many points are the Ravens going to win by? There's no question. Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens offense has been unstoppable at M&T Bank Stadium the last few games, and they just didn't show up on the biggest stage. And again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. As much as I love Lamar, I think it's a lot on him. That turnover where he held the ball too fast was a huge factor. And then obviously the interception late or early in the fourth quarter was unacceptable. That ball should have never been thrown there. And that's one he's going to have to sleep on for a long time.
Yeah, that was 3 people around there. It wasn't even close. And I thought they had a couple pass interference calls against it that we didn't get. But, you can't, I'm not blaming any of the referees. I think that they got into our head a little bit before game time and stuff like that. But let Kelsey catch 11 passes out of 11 is unacceptable. I think that's more of a fault than what their game plan was without running the ball. So, it goes around to all defense, offense, and Lamar and stuff like that. So you just have to live with it. When we got to the AFC Championship game, I was just hoping that we face those 49ers or somebody like that. Then 49ers should have lost to Green Bay. If they picked that ball up, they would have been a different team in there. So it's unfortunate, but Peyton Manning started off 4-2 in the playoffs too. So he came back, and Lamar's very young. We have plenty of chance to correct it, and you're going to have a chip on his shoulder. And I thought Lamar had a good head on his shoulders going through the regular season, at the end of the game, at the end of the season, and in the playoffs. He's just trying to keep everything in front of him, a level head and stuff like that. But maybe they got into his head. Maybe the game plan was wrong, but all the blame goes all the way around.
Well, I will say this, you're exactly right. I think the Ravens fans need to take a deep breath. I think the narrative that Lamar Jackson can't win a Super Bowl is absolutely ridiculous. And when people who say that, I yearn for the day that Lamar Jackson proves them wrong. And I can tell you this, watching that young man play football, nobody cares more about that game than he does. And I think his teammates feed off of that. So I think Ravens fans need to take a deep breath, relax. It was a devastating loss. I mean, obviously we had a great team, and that's the frustrating thing. It was a great opportunity, home field advantage. Everybody was healthy, and you had a great team both offensively and defensively. Unfortunately, the best team doesn't always win. I said this when we talked last time. I've said this over the last couple of years. He reminds me of a golfer trying to win his first major. Phil Mickelson did not win his first major until he was 34. And he was the best player never to win a major. Well, Lamar Jackson right now is probably the best player never to get to the Super Bowl. And you could throw Josh Allen in there among these quarterbacks. And he hasn't won yet, but you know what? He's not Tom Brady. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's Lamar Jackson. His story is not have been written yet. He's 28 years old, and the future is bright for him and for the Ravens. And I just can't wait, till next season, because unlike a lot of Ravens fans, I know they're discouraged and everything, but I feel like the future is bright and the best is yet to come.
I'm hoping I'm not 85 years old before we win a Super Bowl, because I won't be able to enjoy it. But the thing I like about it is he's got a bright future. You got to just take a deep breath and move on. But things happen. Go O's!
Well, the Orioles just got sold, and I know there's a buzz around town. Obviously, spring training's around the corner, and that's the good news, Barry. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl after this. So stay with us.
And now a word from our sponsor.
I love a good adventure, and my friends and family do too. So we all drive Toyotas. Tacomas for my rugged buds and Corollas for my city crew. And I drive a RAV4 that I take camping, shopping, and basically everywhere else. We all picked our Toyotas because they're reliable and efficient and have amazing resale value, saving us money now and down the road, so we can make every day an adventure. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals and inventory. Toyota, let's go places.
And welcome back to the Endless Golf Podcast presented by Toyota. Joining me today is my dear friend Barry the Stallion Streib, and it's our special Super Bowl edition, Stallion. We talked about the Ravens and how disappointed we were about the Ravens game and the fact that they weren't able to pull out the victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. And now we turn our attention to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58, the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Two really, really good teams. And you look at Kansas City, and they seem to be a team that got hot at the right time.
Yeah, they got hot at the right time. But Purdy, when I see Purdy running out of the pocket and running all the way down, I said, why can't Lamar do that? That's what I wanted to see Lamar do. So they have all aspects of the game. And I think their defense will be a little bit on top of Kelsey. So I like the 49ers in the game. I think they're going to pound it down their throats a little bit. They were, out of the four teams that were remaining in the playoffs, Kansas City was the worst team against the rush out of the four teams. So I think they're going to pound it down their throat, hoping Samuel's okay and stuff like that. But they have a tight end also. So that's going to be a good game. You know, it's a 1.5 point spread. Who knows? I probably won't even watch the damn thing, but I'll be so sick if Kansas City wins. I mean, they're like the New England Patriots. When I was going through that airport, everybody's going, please beat them. I said, that drives me nuts.
Well, you know, one thing I learned is do not count out Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. You know, and it's kind of funny when you look at Andy Reid, you know, obviously, John Harbaugh has been a great coach for the Baltimore Ravens. And I would say this to Ravens fans as well. You know, there's a lot of Ravens fans who love Harbaugh, and there's some that say maybe, you know, it's time for a change. Maybe it was a time for a change a couple of years ago. I think that's ridiculous. And I think a great example of that is Andy Reid. I bet you the Philadelphia Eagles wish they would have held on to Andy Reid. Andy Reid didn't forget how to coach. He won a lot of games in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, in some of the big games, they didn't win. They didn't advance to the Super Bowl. And he got basically run out of town for that. And Harbaugh's a really, really good football coach. And I feel like we just need to be a little bit patient. Kansas City, they are a good football team. They're extremely well coached. Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator who I'm surprised they talk about Mike McDonald and the fact, will he get a job? What about Steve Spagnuolo? He's been around the league for a long time. And that guy has done a great job with that Kansas City defense for sure.
Yeah, well, Andy Reid has made some terrible mistakes too in the playoffs. I remember
every coach does. Every coach makes mistakes.
They were up by 30 points over the Colts or something, and they're throwing the ball first, second, and third down through the whole second half. They're down by 30 points. You know, and they're still throwing the ball. The clock is your adversary sometimes. You run the ball down and take time off the clock. You know, it came from 30-some points back. It drove me nuts.
You know, I had a friend of mine tell me he lives his life by a little metric that says the going up has to be worth the coming down. And in Dan Campbell's situation, I can understand about being aggressive, but the coming down part of it, you actually you didn't take the 3 points. You gave all the momentum to the other team, and then they come right down and score, and then you turn the ball over, and the game's over. So I really think if some of the coaches make these decisions, but if Dan Campbell gets the first down, he's a genius. John Harbaugh went for it on 4th and 1, and was the first quarter, I think it was, in this game, or second quarter, from his own 30-some yard line, and got it. If he didn't get that first down, he'd have been killed all over the social media. But no, he got the first down. Andy Reid, if the Kansas City Chiefs lose that game by 3 points and he didn't kick that field goal, what would they be saying about Andy Reid on those situations? So it's always easy to be a Monday morning quarterback when things don't work out.
Well, Dan Campbell, that is the dumbest thing. He did it at the regular season. I mean, he did it all the time. He goes for 4th and 8. He fakes a punt at your own 20-yard line or something like that. that'll catch up with you sooner or later. Sort of like when the Ravens, when the Ravens were going for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3 the whole time. Kick the field goal. You got Justin Tucker, the Hall of Famer. Why don't you take the guaranteed 3? This year, I think we won sometimes with 6 field goals or something like that because we didn't go for it on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3. And I don't like that. Take the 3. I think Dan Campbell killed them mentally.
Well, back to the Kansas City Chiefs, I will say, and you mentioned their secondary and their corners are really, really good. So I'm going to be interested to see how they match up against the San Francisco wide receivers. Ayuk is really good, and we know Deebo Samuels can play. They have a great tight end in Kittle. And then they have Christian McCaffrey, who can run the ball. So the San Francisco 49ers really have it all. We stormed them on Christmas night. I got a chance to spend Christmas night with you and watching the game, and it was outstanding. The Ravens turned them over, I think, 5 times. But that game could have been different if they don't turn them over 5 times. So I just think it's going to be a great matchup. I think San Francisco is loaded, but you can never count out Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. And for the first time ever, you're really seeing the Kansas City defense step up and play some really good football.
Well, what the thing that I like about Mahomes, even though I don't like him, even though what I like about him is he throws a catchable pass. He doesn't throw a dart 80 miles an hour with 20-mile-an-hour winds. He throws a catchable pass. Some of the passes that Kelce caught, he lobbed it. He lobbed it over their heads. He threw a catchable. They have to dart it, and with that inclement weather. But yeah, he throws a catchable pass. He knows how to zing it in there, and he knows how to throw a touch pass. And I think touch passes a lot of times are really makes it easy for a receiver.
Well, I'm sure the NFL got what they wanted, having the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and San Francisco has a great team. I know we're all disappointed that the Ravens are not playing in Super Bowl 58, but you know what? There's always next year, and you just got to keep with the grind. And I'm looking forward to see how this team bounces back. And I'm also looking forward to the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I'll watch, and I will be rooting for the San Francisco 49ers. You can believe that.
Well, I'll be rooting for him too, but I know how the AFC matches up against the NFC, but for them to be favored over what they did to us, what Kansas City did to us, it's more of a zoid, a trapezoid. Everybody in the world is going to take my homeboy, and he's not going to do it. I got Purdy.
All right, I'll take Purdy as well. So we're going to go with San Francisco. Barry, always great spending time with you. Again, a disappointing end to a great season for the Baltimore Ravens, but let's take a deep breath and go O's. That's for sure. We'll go cheer on the Orioles, and then before you know, it'll be football season again, and we'll be back talking some more Ravens football. For Barry the Stallion, Streib, I'm Bobby Vermillion. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.
You go, baby, from the Brass Monkey.
The Endless Golf Podcast has been brought to you by Toyota.